Hi, Myisha. How are you? Good to see you.
I'm well. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about your journey, the milestones that created the values and purpose that you hold today?
Absolutely. So I grew up moving a lot. So I was born in Chicago and ended up in California. And I was born to a single mother, and I had a maternal grandmother, and they raised me in the Christian tradition. And it was through that tradition that I really started to value the teachings around loving people and loving people well, and not just throwing people away or throwing people under the bus. And it was in that experience I remember being a young girl, always serving, volunteering my time, helping the community, and really just like moving through life with this servant heart. And it was a servant heart that led me to move through many of my life's challenges, from my own stint and struggles with mental illness, being hospitalized, and coming out of that situation with more hope, with more courage, and with more possibility, with the possibility that, you know what, if there were spaces available to talk about mental health, if there were more conversations that I could join around mental health, that I could also help have deeper conversations around relationships and service. And it just evolved over time, from me serving in my local community to me serving online and creating an online platform where we as individuals could see whole humanity, that we wouldn't throw each other away, and we could see each other as whole human beings. Because I think that's what we miss in the world today, is this lack of rehumanization, and lack of compassion, and lack of understanding our common humanities across racial difference.
Agree with you about that there's loving people, like the real love, and talking about loving people. It's as you say, it's two different things. There's the talking, there's the acting upon it. And from where you sit now, do you think we are the final phase of eliminating racial discrimination, or do you believe we still have a very long way to go?
I believe we still have a very long way to go. I believe that we have. I often use this idea of concrete making, right, or building a house. I believe the ancestors during the civil rights movement, they poured the concrete and solution in and mixed it in. So they started mixing in this concrete that we would need to really start to see the shifts and change. And I believe that my generation and the generation above me were pouring and laying down that foundation. So I think we're laying down a foundation, but the generations behind us get to build upon the foundation, because there's still structural racism, there's still interpersonal racism, and also individual racism. And it's going to take as many years as it took for for the system to be built up this way. It might take just as long to dismantle it. Has it got better? Absolutely. But do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. And I pride myself in being a part of the generation that's pouring down the foundation, so that the foundation can be built upon, and the future generations will more likely be the ones that really actually build it up in this new reparative future.
I mean, you talked about have we come a long way, and you said absolutely. And well, I think it depends on the day, because some days I actually feel like we are regressing, other than
Yeah.
moving forward. And you touched upon fundamentals, and I wanted to ask you, what for the generation that now are gonna build upon the fundamentals that were laid by the previous generation. What are the fundamentally important things that need to happen in order for us to eliminate racial discrimination? What needs to be done?
Yeah. Well, we first have to start with ourselves. Let's start there. And I want to actually touch back. You're right. Things do feel like we're going back. And I think if we stay focused and, oh my gosh, we're going back, and we stay in that anxiety and that energy, we can't focus on like moving ahead. So I think what's necessary is the self journey, because we can go macro and look at the system and say, let's burn it all down and tear it all down. Okay, great. But if you haven't started with yourself and started building down the fundamental pieces of racism that exists within, and bias and supremacy, you're going to keep enforcing them in your interpersonal relationships, and interpersonal relationships actually impact the bigger system. right? And I don't think we think about this work in that way. It's always like the system is doing a thing and let's go burn it down. We have to start with us and our journey. And then we get in community around accountability and have a community of folks with the same mindset and ideas that are doing their lifelong journey of the work. And then we go as a community and we go to the larger systems. And those systems are imperialist, capitalist, white supremacy, and patriarchy. But to dismantle those systems, it's going to require some of us to go on the inside and kind of do some of the work on the inside and really start working with our ERG groups at work and really start working with the C-suite level executives to have the hard conversations, to do the audits done by outside consultants, and to not just have one-day trainings in maybe a DEI office, but we actually need to make it embedded in the DNA of structural organizations. And I pride myself in being able to work with organizations that actually are looking at their DNA and how they can kind of transmute the DNA of their organization to be more inclusive. But I personally believe that the first step starts within, and then it goes to community accountability and support, and then we go to the system. Because what we have seen is we all get macro and go for the system, and then we don't do our own work. We just stay in the shame of the work. And that's why we are where we are today.
Well, with the systems, I think the problem is sometimes they just want to tick the box to say, you see what, we tick those boxes, so we're doing the work, which is completely not true, right? It's just ticking the box. But you were talking about individual work. And what would you say to an individual like me, for example, who would like to do the work but doesn't really know where to start? What you say, okay, what are the fundamentals that I need to look on, or to look on, and to look for in doing the work?
That's a really good question. Thank you for asking. So for an individual like you who's like, well, I don't know where to start, it's okay. Take a deep breath. All right. I often tell people that you actually have to niche down your journey. And what that looks like is really taking an overall view of your journey and really honing in on what that might look like. And so I tell people to niche down. You got to start with history. When you can go big and start with history, it makes your individual journey a lot easier. And that individual journey starts with understanding your own history, how you were socialized. And the cycle of socialization is a framework by Bobby Harrow that shows you how you have been socialized to uphold these systems. And so then you study history. You start with a great history book, Dr. Ibram Kendi, stamped from the beginning. You start with Dr. Kendi's book, and then you work into the interpersonal work, and that means niching down. So then you'll pick one anti-racism educator, a podcast to listen to, one book to read, in a nonprofit or for-profit entity that's led by people of the global majority to support. And you do that for a period of 90 days. Because what often happens for individuals on the journey is that they start to take on too much and do too many things. And so I tell folks to niche down. Educator, a book, a podcast, and a nonprofit that you feel connected to, that's led by people of the global majority, that you can engage actively in. And so it's just an ongoing work and an ongoing process of staying committed, staying in community, and niching down so you don't get overwhelmed.
That's such a great advice. Thank you so much for that. I mean, it's important for people to feel inspired and empowered when thinking about the elimination of racial discrimination. And I was wondering, have you seen any examples that show us that this breakthrough is actually possible? It's happening.
Can you repeat that one more time?
Yes, of course. I was said that have you seen any, I mean, it's important for people to feel inspired and empowered when thinking about the elimination of racial discrimination. And I was wondering whether you have noticed anything, or do you have any example that show us that this breakthrough is actually possible, that this breakthrough is actually happening?
Absolutely. I lead a community of folks, international community of individuals called co-conspirators across racial difference, who are actually doing the work, who actually lean into the hard work, and they're actually dismantling and decolonizing themselves, and they're actually doing it in their workplace. So I have an individual who I'll share who used to work in sales, and recently decided to transition their career. And in transitioning their career, what they have found was that they've decided to consult on their own as a new consultant and realize that for them, consulting means that they need to divest from characteristics of white supremacy culture, like sense of urgency, overthinking, all or nothing thinking, progress is more, and work in a way that supports their mental and emotional health so that they can show up for people of the global majority. And what this individual has did was removed themselves from a corporate situation and created their own business around supporting people of the global majority to build, organize, and run functioning businesses. And this individual is now doing it in a way where she's, one, impacting businesses ran by people of color, and two, she's doing it in a way that divests from the idea that the more I do, the more I'm worth. Also, like, my shame is not bad. My shame teaches me how to move through my journey. Also, the importance of, I love practicing nonviolent communication, and nonviolent communication is now part of my lifestyle. And so now that this individual specifically practices NVC on a daily basis, and it's embedded not just in their life, but also in their business and also in the communities that they are a part of. So absolutely, I've seen this happen. I've seen individuals go from fear and shame to, oh my gosh, I got this. I know I'm still dealing with my own stuff, my stinking thinking, but I'm gonna get through it.
This is really inspirational. I mean, when you see stories like that that actually come to life, and it's not only on page, it's actually happening, then we have a lot to take from that, right? I know that you have a new book out, Heal Your Way Forward, The Co-Conspirator's Journey to an Anti-Racist Future. And I was wondering whether you can tell us a little bit, because we don't have much time, we have about 3 minutes, if you can tell us a little bit about your book, so we can all know about it.
Absolutely. So my book, Heal Your Way Forward, is really helping individuals look at anti-racism work as intergenerational healing, right? So a lot of anti-racist books, they talk through like concepts and strategies and policies. And this book is really about my lived experience of myself and my own story, and then what co-conspirators can do on taking their journey. And it's called the Co-Conspirators Journey. And so I take them through steps around the awareness, the awakening. And the most controversial chapter of the book is telling people that there are room for white tears, because many people who have been white, socialized as white on this journey, have been told not to cry. But you have to feel your way forward to heal your way forward. And so this is really me just normalizing a human journey around dismantling supremacy within, and really looking at the lifelong journey of unlearning, relearning, normalizing that grief and joy do exist, and really trying to help individuals is that you have to see yourself as a human being on this journey, and not a human doing, not a never-ending to-do list, but the embodiment of it, so you can live into the work and not just do the work. So Heal Your Way Forward, just really trying to get people to look at this work as healing work and not just a to-do list or something to check off the list.
I mean, if people would like to find more about your work, where would you tell them to go? Where should they look for you?
Absolutely. I would tell them to go to MyishaTHill.com, or you can also go to checkyourprivilege.co. So those are the two spaces that people can go to find me. I'm also on Instagram as Myisha T. Hill, and also Facebook.
Myisha, we nearly finished, but if we were to say one thing to the younger viewers, to inspire them, to give them a word of advice, what would it be?
Ooh, that is such a wow. You have the power to change your life, and you have the power to begin again. That life isn't over, that life can begin. Every new day is like a day to know that you're worthy, to know that you have a calling and a purpose, and whatever your passion is, whatever you feel called to do, whatever lights you up inside, do that. And don't let anyone else talk you out of it, because they will try. But stay inspired, stay excited, stay hopeful. And I know it's dark right now, but you also can turn the light on. You can turn the light up in your life despite your circumstances. Trust me, it took me 40 years to get here, and yet I am here. I am arriving. I am living. So life is worth living. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to reach out for support. And don't believe in yourself, because when the odds are against you, that's how you know there's something on the way for you. So be inspired, keep taking your journeys and keep living into the work and defining life according to your own terms.
So the way forward to a better society and better humanity is actually the way through yourself. Thank you so much, Myisha, for your being a part of such an important day of the year, and for your contribution and for being with us. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.